Josh Duggar received a merciless smackdown from the federal government. Since he was in prison, nothing has been easy for him. But what is happening to him now? For more details, see below. The Counting On family had to deal with the Josh Duggar controversies at a trying and closely watched time. Despite the challenges, they all maintained their composure and tried their best to make the family seem positive in the face of the tremendous scrutiny. Josh was sentenced to over 13 years in jail for receiving and possessing child sexual abuse material (CSAM). Although it has been a big topic for a while, the situation has gotten worse with time. Josh claims that his troubles started with a former lover, and he is now accusing TLC of forcing him to reveal his made-up issues. TLC aired the reality show's 19 Kids and Counting On. It appears like things will only get worse for the father of 7. Records show that Josh allegedly mailed in legal documents by ordinary mail. Among other reasons, they suspected that a third party had assisted him. After reading the lengthy filing, many of Josh's fans were happy to see that he was finally getting the harsh penalty he deserved. They think he got away with too much bad behavior throughout the years, and they're over it now. Some Counting On watchers believe Josh Duggar will never be able to move past his criminal background. Furthermore, a lot of people think that after he is released, he would behave in the same way as before. One reader claimed that Counting On viewers were even more disappointed with Josh Duggar after their fruitless attempts to understand this lengthy text. After that, he received criticism for all of his wrongdoings, and they essentially said nothing good about him. Finally, a lot of personal insults and claims that he is and has always been dishonest were made. He has obviously not learned anything, as evidenced by the fact that he lied about the date he turned it in. For a moment, picture the cocky, egotistical crook who believed he could use legal whiz to pull off his scam. According to some, Josh Duggar has not gained any knowledge from his mother Michelle's homeschooling techniques. They also mention Josh's belief that he is famous, despite the fact that he is not. One of the most amazing court dramas of the last few years is Josh Duggar's quick transition from reality TV star to convicted felon. As the oldest son of the 19 Kids and Counting Duggar family, Duggar was well known until the late 2010s. But throughout that decade, his legal career took a drastic change. In documents they submitted, federal agents, prosecutors, and the courts outlined the case against him in alarming detail. The court documents demonstrate just how far the smackdown actually went. 1. Investigation and detention. What sparked the interest of the investigators? Issues began when Department of Homeland Security inspectors connected the exchange of photos to a computer at Duggars' used car business, Wholesale Motor Cars, in Arkansas. Images of minors and other sexually exploited youngsters (CSAM) were contained in the files in question. Downloaded in May 2019 in accordance with the deadline. On April 29, 2021, U.S. Marshals arrested Josh Duggar after indicting him on 2 federal charges: receiving and possessing child pornography. 2. Court battles and motions before trial. Legal records. Through motions, Duggar's legal team contested several elements of the prosecution's case. Among their objectives were to have the case dropped, have the evidence concealed, and contest the retention of any evidence that may clear them. The defendant's primary complaint was that the investigative team had overlooked evidence that could have cleared their names. Devices belonging to other people who had used the same computers that the team had failed to confiscate and inspect. Duggar's attorneys filed a motion to suppress statements he allegedly made during a search at the dealership, which the prosecutors used in his trial. Duggar said they ought to have been censored since his attorney wasn't present and because his rights were in jeopardy. Another move sought to hide video evidence found on electronic devices, arguing that the case had become stale, i.e., too much time had passed between the claimed action and the warrant search of his equipment. Duggar's team argued that evidence in child pornography cases did not expire, but the judge denied their motion. 3. Final thoughts and resolution. A federal jury found Duggar guilty of receiving and possessing child pornography during a trial in December 2021 in Fayetteville, Arkansas. In May 2022, Duggar was sentenced to 12 years and 7 months in federal prison. His fine and special evaluations will be followed by a long period of supervised release and further restrictions. 4. Evaluation and refusal. Duggar's lawyers appealed the decision to the Eighth Circuit. Certain of the primary arguments presented were that the matter should be dismissed or suppressed because the lack of legal representation during the search justified the concealment of any comments made, that certain evidence was prejudiced, and so on. When the 8th U.S. Circuit, a federal appeals court, upheld the conviction on appeal on August 7, 2023, those arguments were rejected. Investigators made sure Duggar knew his rights and that he may leave at any moment, and after the interrogation, he really did. The court decided that he was not technically in custody at the time, despite the fact that this was important to the suppression argument. Duggar petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court when the 8th Circuit denied his appeal, but the court refused to consider his case. On June 24, 2024, the Supreme Court upheld the rulings of the lower courts by declining to examine his case. 5. Crucial disclosures in the court records. The court records, motions, and rulings indicate both what the prosecution alleged and what the court accepted as proven. Some of the most damning evidence is as follows. By examining the IP address and metadata, the forensics team was able to connect Duggar to the files. Additionally, they discovered connections between the CSAM activities and the gadgets, including an iPhone and PCs at his dealership. The compound's level of danger. In one case, a Homeland Security agent described some of the downloaded materials as some of the most disgusting he had ever seen. This could not be ignored. Statements made on the spot. Agents allegedly spoke with Duggar during the dealership search and said, "What is this all about? Has anyone been able to view pornographic content that shows children?" Furthermore, he admitted that he was aware of the file-sharing programs that were pre-installed on his machines. During the trial, the court regarded these statements as evidence. 6. Next steps and current situation in jail. Duggar is presently serving out his sentence in a federal prison. His earliest release date is October 2032, assuming all customary reductions are implemented. A later supervised release is also scheduled. Current legal issues. In more recent court filings, Duggar has requested appointed counsel for post-conviction relief. He argues that he cannot afford to sufficiently challenge any potential constitutional defects. 7. The conflict. Proof from the court records. As you go through the procedures, rulings, and legal arguments, a few points stand out to you like punches in a boxing match. A wealth of forensic evidence is provided by IP tracing, device analysis, and metadata. The prosecutors did not rely only on rumors. They also produced detailed technical proof. Disclosures made by Duggar on his own initiative or willingly that the prosecution utilized to link him to the investigation. Contextually, the court rejected the arguments for suppression, ruling that Duggar was not in custody at the time of his statements. Several of Duggar's petitions for dismissal were denied, including claims that statements were suppressed and that material was not preserved. The defense put out a number of arguments, according to the court documents, but the judges dismissed each one as inadequate given the legislation. Appeals that make it to the appellate level frequently fail because the requirements are higher there. You must demonstrate a clear error, constitutional violation, etc. Since neither the Supreme Court nor the appeals court decided to overturn or even take into account the issues, the legal system maintained the trial and sentencing as being in compliance with the law. 8. The overall social and legal environment. Not only have legal information surfaced, but other documents also discuss Duggar's contentious past, including allegations of molestation from his early years, his public admission of using pornography in 2015, and family members' recriminations. These incidents gave context and affected popular perception. Even though many of the previous accusations were dropped either due to a lack of evidence or because the statute of limitations had expired, they nonetheless influenced the public's and the court's impressions of someone's reliability, character, and conduct pattern.